Hi, welcome back. So, bit of a change of scenery today. I've got the place to myself, so I thought why not come into the living room. So, yeah, it's really weird. The quality of the video doesn't look so good as in my drawing room. I apologize if it is quite grainy. Anyway, so today's video is about the past life regression that I had years ago. Um, it's quite fascinating, and I thought I would walk you through it for those that aren't sure what to expect, or for those that have had a past life regression and they're just maybe wondering what mine was. For those that aren't sure what past life regression is, it's basically where you are put into hypnosis by a therapist, where they take you into a deep state where your brain waves go from alpha to theta, and you, when you're in that state, can tap into like all sorts of things. So, I mean, you can have past lives. You can have lives between lives, regression. You can you can tap into childhood trauma and all sorts of things. You know, it's quite a useful tool, but it does come with a bit of a warning because exploring your past lives can be quite traumatic. Some people have good experiences, and for some people, it's really horrific, especially like if it was a painful life, or you left that life like in a terrible way. All sorts of things. I know somebody who was pretty traumatized by it, but um, you know, a lot of good can come from them. You can learn a lot from your previous lives and how they might fit into this life. So um, I'll walk you through it, and then I'll explain about um, the lives that I went to visit. And at the end, there's like a little bit of a twist because this does link in with a spirit portrait that I also commissioned a few years ago. So, anyway, so I was lucky enough to find a therapist not that far away from me. She lived in the next town, and we went for in person. So for me personally, I don't think I'd want to do it over the internet. I believe you can have past life regression, um, through the internet remotely. But I wanted one on one. She had a really nice house. She had a back room that she'd made into sort of like a healing room, and there was like a bed, and then like you lie there and she puts a blanket on you. And then she'll slowly walk you through like a visualization process where she'll get you into that deep relaxation, into theta. Um, I believe everybody has their own way of doing it, depending what therapist you have, their own visualizations and what works for them. From memory, mine was kind of like going into a garden, there was a water fountain, and then you slowly get taken down these steps. And as she slowly takes you down these steps, which takes, it takes about 20 minutes to 30 minutes. Um, and then once you're down those steps, you're on a path and there's lots of doors. And then she'll slowly walk you down that path. And as you pass the doors, she'll like tell you to stop at the one you feel drawn to. And then when you get to that door, I'm saying she, by the way, because my therapist was a she, but obviously, guys do it too. Sorry, just didn't want to sound sexist or anything. So my door, she'll get you to explain it, what the door looks like, and above the door there is a number, and that is the time period. And then when you walk through the door, she'll ask you questions like, what are you wearing? What can you see? What's in the distance? How do you feel? Like stuff like that, to try and get um, a mental image. And they tend to sit there and write it all down, and I also had it recorded. Um, and they do tend to do this because, from what I understand, when you're in that deep state and then you come out of it, you don't really remember much. So it's good to have it recorded. However, I kind of do. At the time, I did remember it all, which I thought, oh, did I really go under? Anyway, where was I going? So then, in that life, which you described to her, she'll then move you to a different age in that life. You can go forward or you can go back. I went forward, and then she asks you to sort of explain what you can see, what you can feel, and then again she moved me to a different age. Again, it can be backwards and forwards, and I went forwards, so I was in my elderly years. And then the thing is, like, she said to me, we've still got some time left of your session, because I think it was like a 2 hour session or something. You've got a bit of time left. Do you want to explore a different life? And of course I said, yeah, let's do it. Um, and then she'll slowly walk you back out of that life through the door, and then you're back onto the path. So she was like, right, keep going, and again, when you feel drawn to a certain door, let me know. And I got to a door. This door was completely different to the other door. This one was like really old wood, and it had a cast iron, like very heavy, sort of. It was like a handle, and you have to like hold it and twist it. Anyway, I went through the door, and I went into this other life, and it was the same. It was the same process. You know, she asked me lots of questions. We went to different ages, and then she brings you back out of that life, back onto the path, and then she'll slowly walk you right back up the steps, back into the garden, and you're back in the room. The thing is, what narked me, and I got to be really honest, was, and she never explained this to me prior, but if you get the opportunity to explore a further life, it put me over my time. So I went over like the 2 hours. And then she's like, oh, by the way, because we went into another life and it took slightly longer than your session, I'm going to have to charge you like an extra 20 quid. And it could have only been 15, 20 minutes that I went over, but she was still happy to bill me. So I had to like run down the road and find a cash point and find her, £20. I just think she should have said, made that clear prior to my session. But anyway, that was just my experience. Um, so yeah, let's explain the lives. So the first life I went to, so I've scribbled down some notes. My name was Roger, but I was French, so it was pronounced slightly differently. And in that life, I was about 14, 17 years of age. And by the way, as I as I went to the doorway, remember I said that the time period is above the door. It was 1884. Um, I was asked, where do I live? Now, this is a bit of a grey area because, I mean, I know no French. I was taught German at school. So I really, really don't know barely anything about the French language. But I said Le Mont. Now, from what I understand, there is a place in France called Le Mont, but there's also, it could also be a surname, and it could also be the old French language for from the mountains. So, I mean, like I said, it's a bit of a grey area. Um, so at that age, I was a labourer, and I wasn't very happy. It was really, really hard work, and I felt like I was working at a mill, but I'm not sure what type of mill it was. Um, I know I had brown leather shoes on, but I couldn't see really what else I was wearing. Um, And then she moved me forward to a different age, and I was then 19. Again, I'm still in the same situation. I'm literally just working backbreaking work all the time, just enough money to feed myself. And I'm the the only item of clothing that I knew I was wearing was a black cap. I just check my notes. Yeah, oh God, I was feeling bitter, so um I was frustrated because I'd wished that I'd been able to learn a skill so that I could have got a better job, and then maybe I would have had more money and more prospects, and um, just maybe had things just a bit easier. Um, I think, yeah, I mentioned in my regression that I wished that I'd trained to be a cobbler, something like that, something of skill. And I mentioned that there are no hope for people like us. Um, yeah, so I wasn't a happy bunny. Then we moved forward um, to when I was elderly, and well, I say elderly, but it like my latter years. And again, I'm still working at this mill, and I was aware by then that this mill was um, it was like a wood mill, so it would slice up all the large bits of wood into planks. And I'm pretty miserable by then. I'm old and grouchy. I've got grey hair. I'm smoking a cigarette. Um, and cigarettes were around then, apparently. And what did I write? Oh, I was wearing a waistcoat. I had a moustache, and a shirt. And I didn't marry. I didn't have any children. And I wrote this down from the audio that I listened to this morning with just to refresh myself. I put life sucked. I never got a break. So then then I was asked at the end of exploring that life, what do you think it was that what is it from that life that you can take from it that reflects into this life? And I'll be honest, I wasn't really sure what to say other than I guess at 19 I was in the same kind of situation and mindset as when I was a 19-year-old in that life as Roger. Um, you know, I was studying, but I felt stuck in a rut. I, I wanted to go on and do bigger and better things. You know, just really frustrated. Um, maybe a bit bored with life. You know, that sort of thing. So there was sort of parallels. Um, and then we moved on to the second life. And this one is where it gets quite intriguing. So at the top of the door, the time was 902 BC, so way back in the day. And I was wearing robes and I was about 70 years old. And I remember I was asked my name and I just couldn't really get it. And I kind of felt a little bit pressurized into just conjuring up a name. So I went with Harold and Seamus, which are two completely different names. So throughout the session, she just kept saying, "Oh, Harold and Seamus. How do you feel, Harold and Seamus?" She just kept using the two names because we weren't sure. Um, and I had to describe myself and where I was, and I was just like, I'm carrying a staff. I know I'm old. I've got a bald head. I can tell that but I've got like a grey ring around the sides of my head. I knew I was religious, and I knew that I was very high up. I felt like I was on a really, really high cliff edge, and I knew that there was a big slab of rock below my feet, and I could see for miles and miles and miles. It was really pretty, and it was like a gorgeous, really like deep blue sky. It was really hot, and I had this sense of being really, really light and connecting with God, and it just wouldn't go away. I just wanted to go higher and higher. And I wrote in my notes that on the audio I said that I felt like I was on the cusp of like going into the light source, and I didn't want to come back down, and not passing over as in dying, just my soul connecting with the universe and God and everything that was truly magnificent, divine. Um, what else have I got here? So yeah, I was obsessed kind of basically with the higher realms and my intuition, my visions, and everything that goes with that. Uh, what else? Yeah, and it felt like God was welcoming me. It was really quite emotional. I do remember kind of getting a bit teary, and um, it felt really, really special. Like I really felt like I was connecting with the source and having like an out of body experience on the cliff edge, like I was coming out of my body and going up to the higher realms. Um, and then I said to the therapist, I said, well, look, I'm getting a headache. Um, connecting at such a high vibration, it's just like, it's giving me it's giving me brain ache. I just feel it just feels so sore. And and then she was like, well, why sorry, babbling. What can you take from that life that reflects into this life? And I guess in that I suffer with migraines. I get a lot of headaches like daily. And on the audio I was like, well, sorry, I don't know if you heard that. It was just a really weird knock in my house. Okay, just gonna ignore that. So, oh, that's made me lose my train of thought. Blah blah blah. Where was I? Got all completely stuck because that's really spooked me. But then again, my house is basically a waiting room full of spirit. Um, they're waiting to be drawn. So, yeah, the headaches. Being at such a high vibration all the time, and I'm not gonna lie, I do forget to ground myself sometimes. I do spend a lot of time like I feel higher than I maybe should do. I should ground myself more, and just do more human stuff rather than living it's such a what's the word, being so spiritual all the time, because obviously I'm connecting with people's guides, I'm drawing a lot, I do meditations, I surround myself with crystals. Even when I'm in the bath, I've got like my Himalayan salts, my Epsom salts to cleanse my aura and raise my vibration. I listen to lots and lots of music and with the intention of raising my vibration, and and maybe I'm not helping myself, I don't know, but I guess I took from that life that he too, being at such a high vibration, it's going to affect you physically, and in this life is that also affecting me physically. That's one for another video. Anyway, so on the way out, as we were going back up the steps into the garden, I paused the lady, like she was chatting to me, and I was just like, wow, I can now see the universe. It was insane. I could see space and planets and the universe. It was like I was being told that I am connected to everything and the source, and just don't forget it. And that was like a really nice bit of me coming out of my um regression. Um so yeah, and I will say this, okay? I have to say it because I want to be really honest for anybody who's thinking of doing it. I was in two minds to whether I was genuinely under and kind of in that theta brainwave state, because I I mean, I really I did feel relaxed, don't get me wrong, because when I listened to the audio this morning, I could tell that I was relaxed. From my voice, I was very much talking like this. Um, so I was obviously relaxed, but I do remember distinctly wanting to fidget all the time. I just wanted to I kept getting like, I want to itch my arm, I want to itch my leg. Um, and obviously that's taking me out of that deep trance. And yeah, I just felt agitated at times, and also kind of almost pressurized into giving answers. I know that sounds terrible, but like there were loads of times when I'd just be like, I don't know. And she'd be like, don't worry about it, let's move on. And then she'd ask me another question. I'm like, I really don't know. So I did feel like I was being, like, I had to just grab something out of nowhere. Now, that might be the right way to go, in the sense that go with the first thing that comes into your head, right? Which is kind of what I had to do. So therefore, the first thing that pops into your head is that what I should have gone with. And so was I doing it correctly? I just don't know. Okay, so, but I will say, like I said before, I did remember the whole thing, and people report that when they come out of it, they don't know what they've said, and hence they have to listen to the audio. And the other thing that sort of bugged me was, she did say, "Wow, you were really good. Gosh, you gave a lot of information. You went down real quick." And I thought, "Oh God, did I?" Um, mm. So anyway, here's the twist, which is to do with a spirit guide portrait that I purchased a couple years after this regression. So every now and again, I feel the pull to get a spirit guide portrait. Um, there's been quite a few times I will get one for my birthday as a gift to myself, and on this occasion it was, and I really wanted a portrait from Barbara Hudson. She's quite a well-known spiritual artist in the UK who does past lives and guides. So I really wanted one off of her. Anyway, when it arrived in the post and I opened it, I was like, at first I was like, I just don't, I don't know this guide. I don't recognize this guide, which is absolutely fine. I, I, I don't know who my guides are really. Only, only Matt, my main guide, who I talk a lot about. He's made himself known to me loads of times. He's come through in readings. I've seen him with my own naked eyes. You know, so there's no doubt in my mind that Matt is my main guide. He goes everywhere with me. I love him to bits. And I know I have other guides that have come to me in dreams and visions, and I've sensed them. But then obviously there are other guides on my team that I don't know about, and that's why I like to go to a spirit artist, because what they get I might not get, you know. I don't think we're supposed to know all our guides, and plus they come and go, they chop and change. So anyway, um, so that's why I, probably didn't recognize the guide. But then when I got to the reading, I was just like, oh my God, like she's just she's just gone and drawn my past life. Now, even though I asked for a guide portrait, Spirit have given me amazing validation. I've been given my past life. I never asked for a past life portrait, but I've been given it, and I'm so bloody glad I was. Um, Here's the portrait. So she did apologise for the fact that it was quite a crude drawing, but there were reasons for it. So um, one being that he was in the midday sun. It was incredibly hot, and so um, you know the heat made it all hazy. And as a spirit artist, you've got to draw what you see. So and that's what she did, and so it was hazy. And the other thing was that he was blind, and so he wanted to convey that in the portrait to Barbara. Um, that this is kind of how he sees the world, you know, really quite like blurry, misshapen. Um, so I honestly, I love that portrait. Um, but then, yeah, in the reading, I couldn't believe it. She explained that um, I'm going to call him a guide, even though it's a past life. That this guide had uh, was from biblical times, and I told you that in the regression I came up with 902 BC. Um, that I came from quite a poor family, and me being born basically didn't please them very much because it was another mouth to feed. Um, so my teenage years sucked, and I was begging a lot. I didn't have much food, and I hit bottom. I had enough, and then I kind of went on a pilgrimage. Um, um, I've basically was very religious, and I went on a religious pilgrim, and I went to the desert, somehow survived the desert, and on the other side, that's when I then started to flourish. um, I um, obviously being blind, not having very good vision, I had to rely on my other senses, so that's where my third eye in that life really expanded. um, I was very much in touch with the higher realms. I had amazing insight. I I used my third eye a lot, and that guide was there to help me with my third eye and my intuition as a spirit artist. So that was incredible. And I mean, and oh, and he was wearing white robes. I said I was wearing robes in that regression. Um, and he also had a bald head, and so did I. And I said it was incredibly hot, and it was in the reading that it was incredibly hot. You know, I mean, you couldn't write it. That there was just it was just confirmation after confirmation, and I was so excited. I mailed Barbara straight away, and I was like, guess what? Okay, I didn't ask for a past life, but you've given it to me, and I'm so bloody glad you did. And she was just as made up as I was. And quite rightly, she said to me, she said, well, don't we also guide ourselves, our higher selves? And I was like, absolutely. So it turns out my higher self was guiding me. My higher self is technically one of my own guides. And, you know, in a previous video, I explained how my higher self saved my life after a really bad migraine attack. So, yeah. So even though I was like, am I really under? Why is it I can remember everything? Why am I scratching, itching, and agitated, and I don't really feel like I'm under? There definitely was some truth to it, because you know, this is the proof. Anyway, so that's the interesting story I had to tell. The last thing I would like to say is anybody thinking of doing it, um, obviously find somebody reputable, do your homework. Um, I believe that um, past past life regression can vary in time. So like mine was done in 2 hours, and it took me 20, 30 minutes to go under. And then there are other therapists who will do literally, it's like a 2 day affair. So you go there the first day, and you kind of have like a dry run of going under, so you know what to expect, and like they you know train you up like in 1 day on how to get into that state and what you want to achieve out of it. um, and it can be quite intense. You know, you might be working through something quite serious, so you need like that first day session, and then you go back the next day, and then it's like the real thing. And then that's when you go under and you will spend all day working on that with a therapist. But obviously that costs a lot more. I know somebody who's done the 2 day, and it's like she said it was absolutely mind blowing. It was incredible, the best thing she's ever done. But yeah, so there we have it. I'm not going to talk anymore. I hope you kind of found that interesting. Maybe you took something from it. I'd like to know if anybody else has had um, any past life regression, and maybe if you'd like to share what your past life was, because it's really interesting. Anyway, okay, see you later. Bye.